So, Tim Morris, welcome to the Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Ed. It's great to be with you. I'm doing fine, thank you very much. Busy, but great to be able to talk to you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to catch up with you, Tim. And I'm actually quite interested to get into your background because I kind of only know you through the work that you're doing with Symphony. So it'd be good to see and learn a bit more about your story as a franchisee and as a support to other franchisees. So let's kick it off with your first job then, since you left
Yeah.
education.
Well, since I very early on, I don't know why. I came home from school one day and I said to my mom at the time, I said, I want to go into the hotel industry. And to cut a long story short, that was when I was 16. Uh, 3 or 4 years later, when I'd done my training, I did end up in the hotel industry, and that's where my career started. And I ended up working for Holiday Inns in Southern Africa
Oh, wow.
as an assistant food and beverage manager. Long story before that, how that ended up being that. So it's a really interesting story, but for somebody so young. But I ended up in Southern Africa working for Holiday Inns, and it was really exciting. The work was really exciting. It was fast paced. It was early on in my career, learning to organize and plan and all of these types of things, and deliver service. Um, and yeah, I was with Holiday Inns for nearly 13 years,
Wow.
in Southern Africa. Yeah.
So so why the hotel sector? What was attracting you to that world?
You know, to this day, I have no idea why the original statement was made to my parents that I want to go into the hotel industry. But once I was in it, what I realized was that there was this. I understood and the importance of quality of service, of empathy towards customers, understanding what those customers needed, being really able to react to those individual requirements. And the more I got into this within the hotel sector, I realized the power of that personal nature of service, and also the quality of delivery of that service, and whether that be service or product. And it doesn't matter at what price point you are in the service. Um, all of these elements are key to success. Interestingly, what I really enjoyed as well is that I came to realize quite quickly that I was part of a franchise operation, without even knowing that I was getting into franchising. I suddenly realized that, oh, hang on, Holiday Inn is a worldwide concept, um, with a couple of thousand hotels across goodness knows how many countries. And they're all owned by either individual owners, or they're part of a group. But there's a franchisor. At that stage, the franchisor was in Memphis, Tennessee, the original home of Holiday Inns, um, and that quality and personal service, which I spoke about just a minute ago, um, came from an operations manual, and it came from people coming from Memphis and checking that the standards which were laid down in those operations manuals were actually being maintained. Um, and once I understood this, I really started to understand the power of franchising in terms of the support that it gives to business people to provide a business system which is proven to deliver success. Um, yeah, it was. There was some. This is really early on in my career.
Yeah, wow.
Nobody ever told me. Nobody ever told me that I was in the franchising sector. But I realised that's where I was.
Yeah, that's cool. So you say you went to South Africa. What age was that you went over to South Africa, and why?
So yeah, I ended up in Africa. Uh, First of all, when I was training in just outside London, and I ended up in Zimbabwe for 6 months, working there on an exchange scheme. And once I'd got the bug for Africa, I then applied for jobs in and around Southern Africa, and I was lucky enough to succeed in a role within Holiday Inns in South Africa, and that was at the age of 20/21. So I packed my suitcase. I formally emigrated, and I was there for 21 years, I guess. I got married. My kids were born in South Africa, and then I came back to the UK in 2000. Yeah,
It's quite a brave move at that age, really, isn't it? To I guess leave friends
yeah,
behind, family behind, and go and start a new life, a new
yeah,
career overseas. Especially South
yeah.
Africa. It's not like nipping across to France or Belgium or Germany or something like this. It's quite a different
No,
culture, I'd imagine.
it was, and of course, we all know the history of South Africa. It was going through political turmoil as well, and so it was a very challenging environment to work in for the hotel industry. There was very little tourism, international tourism going on. So whereas today South Africa is a destination of choice for many, many, many thousands of people, in those days there were hardly any tourists coming in. So we had challenging times in making sure that we could keep the hotels functioning. It was a time I would never. I would never not have done. It was just so exciting, so brilliant to see the changes which went on, etc.
Also, what kind of level did you get to with Holiday Inn, and what happened next?
Yeah, so I went up the career ladder. Ended up being a general manager for some of the large hotels. We did some brand changes as well during that time. So I was responsible for converting some of the hotels from unbranded, if you like, franchise brands to Holiday Inn brands because of the power of the brand. So we did some substantial changes. Rebranded a hotel in Cape Town. I rebranded a hotel in Johannesburg, and that took me to 1995, I believe it was. And I've got more exposure to franchising at that stage during the time that we were converting hotels to new brands. Because what we did was we brought in. This was the time when you'd outsource parts of your traditional area of business to professionals. So we brought in franchise brands in the restaurant sector to operate our restaurants. We created our own franchise Irish pub brand and outsourced that brand to independent operators. So within a hotel that I would be managing, I would, rather than having a restaurant manager or a bar manager, I'd have two independent business owners managing or owning the restaurant area under the restaurant brand or the bar under the bar brand. So that brought in a different dynamic. So we had me managing a hotel which was franchised to Holiday Inns, and I had to manage the the restaurant owner, but they were also being managed by their franchisor, and same with the bar as well. But what that did for me is as well is say, hang on, I could be an independent business owner, and what better way to go than to look at franchising as an option? Why don't I become a franchisee?
Before we go into that, I want to kind of go back to that dynamic within Holiday Inn, because that's really interesting. I hadn't realized that happens, that underneath that franchise brand, there was potentially other brands that were being franchised. So do you think having a business owner running the restaurant or a business owner running the bar, did that make it more successful, or was it just less headaches for you or more headaches? Yeah.
It was the first thing was it was more successful. And two, in terms of headaches, it was more a different dynamic than management dynamic than anything else. But absolutely, it was more. They were more successful. The entrepreneurship of the independent business owners, but also operating to their tried and trusted business systems from their franchisor, built that success. And the restaurant brand that in one of the hotels that we had was one of the best known brand names in the restaurant sector in South Africa at that time. So you would get all of the hotel guests using it because they were in the hotel, but you'd also get local residents from miles around coming to the restaurant because it was such a well-known brand.
I guess they'd have to pay a bit of a premium on that though, because it's almost guaranteed traffic, right? To be in a Holiday Inn hotel, which
absolutely. I mean, it was a big investment. Most definitely, it was a big investment, and they'd be big spaces as well. And we weren't shy to charge our rentals based on what the projected revenues was going to be. So for one of the things which we didn't have to worry about as a hotel operator was the profitability of the bar, the profitability of the restaurant, because we just got our rent paid from it. We became landlords in a way, but we still had to ensure that the service that they delivered was up to par for our brand. So that's where that dynamic of us working with the business owner and also the franchisor to ensure that standards were maintained at all times.
Right. So tell me a bit more about this new venture then of yours of becoming a business owner. At that point, was it 90, 95, 96, you say?
95, yeah, with a very young family as well. I had my son was 3, very close to 3. My daughter at that stage hadn't even been born. She was in her mom's womb, so she had been thought about, but she hadn't been born. And little old me went home and said, I think we should start looking at another opportunity. Anyway, I started to realize that, okay, franchising is not about just bars and food or fast food, etc. There are lots and lots and lots of other opportunities out there. I looked around and I found a print franchise, which we would know here in the UK as Call Quick. In South Africa and all other countries in which that brand operated, that was known as Quick Copy, an American brand. And there was a master license holder in South Africa. There were 40 units, and after looking at other types of businesses to invest in, we chose the print business to invest in. And
why is that? Because it doesn't sound the most exciting in the world, I have to admit. But maybe that's just to me. But what's interesting about the print world?
So it was more about the opportunity, Ed, than whether I really was excited about the fact of printing business cards or flyers or letterheads or brochures or invoice books or anything of that. It was more the opportunity. I realized that the opportunity was that every single business needs a printer. Certainly at that time, before digital technologies had taken off.
Sure.
Every single business needed a printer, and so for me there was a huge opportunity. I then realized, of course, once I got back from training, that hang on, every single business that exists has already got a printer. So what we'd learned in our training was, they didn't shy away from that. The franchisor didn't shy away from that. You had to go out and market. You had to go out and convince businesses to allow you to quote for their current print requirements. You had to be out and about in front of your target market all the time with your brand name, front and center as much as you possibly could. So that was the first aspect. The second aspect, when it came to people, especially coming from the hospitality, the hotel industry, lots and lots and lots of my colleagues said, "What? You've gone from the hotel business to printing? It doesn't make sense." Actually, it made a huge amount of sense, because what the hotel business taught me was what I mentioned earlier on, which was quality, personal service. Those two elements. I had to, because of the way that the brand was structured, we had to charge a premium price, and that's common for many, many, many franchise brands. Franchising is about value and premium pricing very often. And so some of my competition, the local independent quick printers, as they were called, would be quoting out at 25 or 30% of what I was quoting. I had to be able to deliver at significantly higher prices, and that was all about very, very personal service. It wasn't about the business card. It was about, and what was on that business card, it was about getting beneath the skin of the businesses, the business owners. It was about getting understanding their business. It was about understanding the challenges, and we could talk this bit for an hour on its own. But I literally, because of the power of franchising as well, and it was a global franchise. Just one example: personal assistant of a managing director of a fairly of the big Caterpillar heavy machinery licensee in South Africa. They approached me and they said, "Look, he's going to the States. He hasn't got any business cards. We need them." Well, I couldn't print them in time. But what we were able to do was get the proof done, get the specifications of the business card. I sent the image via email to the local printer in the States. They printed them. They delivered them to his hotel, and the hotel put them on his pillow for when he arrived in his room.
Awesome.
There is, if they didn't care what they paid for those business cards. They had their business cards, and it was done really personally. And it came with my guarantee that we would make this happen for them. And that's just one story of many that I was able to deliver on. And it was all through that, what I learned in the hotel industry. Very, very personal service, understanding individuals' personal needs at any given time, empathizing with those, making sure that you can solve those problems. I used to say to people, This print problem is not your problem anymore. I've just taken it from your shoulder and I put it firmly on my shoulder. But I'm responsible for this, not you. You can relax now. People believed in that. And it worked. It really, really worked.
Yeah. Having a fairly, I'd say fairly decent career in sales that I've had, I think personalization is massively important, even more so in today's world, I think, because we're used to everything being personalized to us. When I go onto Google, I notice that all the stories that pop up, Google News, I noticed that all of the stories are related to articles that I've read in the past. That I don't get general news anymore. I get news that's tailored to me on my recommendations on Spotify or Amazon Music. It's always music that's relevant to me. Netflix, it's the same. And I think just as a society, we're used to that personalization. And I think businesses that aren't keeping up to speed with that, they're the ones that are going to get left behind. Even if it's a cheaper service, like you say, you ultimately are going to lose out to that personalization. I personally think, anyway.
I don't think we even have to doubt that in any way. We human beings just absolutely love personal attention. For a few years, I think, as the big digital giants moved into the service delivery space, that personalization did have a hiccup. And as consumers, we were accepting that, we didn't get personal service in many areas. But as you build that personalization back in, you can virtually see consumers and clients breathe a sigh of relief that somebody gets it, somebody understands. And even the big giants, that's why they're doing it, because when we first, certainly me, when I first used to get fed or served up to me articles which were perfect for me, I'd how on earth do they know? Well, of course we know now. We understand that, how it all works. So we couldn't do it ourselves, but we understand that there's stuff going on in the background, algorithms, etc. But it's great. Why serve me up stuff which I'm not interested in when there is lots of stuff which I am interested in, and I'm being served it up, and it's absolutely satisfying my need. And the more that we do it, and offer that personalization, the more successful our businesses will be. And it's personalization with belief that you're doing the right thing for your clients. That you're not just doing this because it will create a bottom line. But if you've got that real belief, because with that belief comes sincerity and all of that type of thing. With all of that comes referrals, word of mouth, reviews. It's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I guess it's the follow-up that's important as well, isn't it? Once you've got their money in hand, don't disappear. It's a partnership that you can turn it into for the long term, right?
Yeah.
So that
follow-up exactly
important.
Yeah.
So quick copy, then you was with them for 5 to 6 years, is that right?
5 years, yeah.
How and why did that end?
So nothing more than the situation in South Africa at the time with young kids, which hasn't really changed since then. There was career prospects to think about for future education for our kids. There was the safety concerns. So going to visit South Africa as a tourist is a wonderful thing to do. Living in South Africa you've got to be prepared to deal with those challenging issues that it has. Certainly had at that time. So we chose to move the family to the UK, and I sold the business. It took 3 weeks to sell, and it was a good sale. I built the business up. So from a franchising point of view, franchises have a value to them when you want to exit, and that's exactly what I did. And I handed over what I believe to have been a very strong business for the future owner to carry on there.
So who did you sell it to? Was it another franchisee maybe looking to expand their territory, or was it somebody outside of the Quick Copy family?
So somebody outside the Quick Copy family, but again, somebody who understood franchising. They had a Shell garage franchise.
Okay.
Interestingly, so they were moving. They were diversifying as well. They just saw the opportunity, and I think he was the second person who came to look at the business. He did his due diligence, we got approval from the franchisor, and that was it.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds almost too easy.
It was. I have to say, I was quite surprised at the time. So I have no illusion. So anybody listening to our conversation, it's not always a 3-week job to sell a business.
Yeah, I know within some franchise brands, it's quite easy almost to pass on your book of work or clients onto another franchisee, especially if it's not completely territory based.
Yes,
that can be quite simple to do. But I've spoken to other brands where there's always someone in the network who wants to expand, but I guess in most cases you look into somebody external, right, and to try to buy that business. And I think that's quite an interesting scenario, because I think if you want to start your own business, you want to start it from scratch almost. I feel like, or that maybe that's me personally. I'd be cautious of taking over somebody else's clients, because I don't know if I would have that same relationship. But I guess there's people out there that are experienced in doing this, and that's a really good proposition for them to take a business that's already thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that, and we'll during our conversation, I'm sure we'll move on to franchising support and how I moved into that. But one of the areas of franchising support is talking to franchisees about what your exit plan is, and creating value in the business so that you have an asset which you can sell, just like your house that you purchase and you build up its value. Some of that is market driven. In business, it's business success driven, and that's an element of business ownership which shouldn't be underestimated, because they can be valuable assets.
Well, let's jump into that support piece now. So I know for the next 5 years you was the owner of 4 licensed properties in the pub industry from the looks of things. So obviously entrepreneurship was still in your blood. And was that kind of like let's touch on it quickly. Was that kind of like a franchise organization that you were operating under there, or?
So it wasn't, but it had elements that were very, very similar to franchising. So it was back in the early 2000s when I'd moved. The family and myself had moved back to the UK, and we were looking at what we should do. Should we go and get paid employment, or should we carry on, as you say, with this entrepreneurial business ownership desire that we had? And interestingly, something which I hadn't mentioned earlier to Ed on our conversations was that I was offered a job in franchising actually before we took on the pubs, and that was also in the quick print sector. I got offered a support role with Prontoprint at the time, but I chose ultimately to carry on business ownership. And at that stage, the big pub companies such as Punch and Enterprise and others were virtually purchasing the entire freehold space of pubs in the UK. It was you could access the pub business opportunity very cost effectively, with also the opportunity to exit at some point if you took on a lease. So the vision of business ownership, exit opportunity, and a sector which I knew incredibly well from a food and beverage point of view seemed to make sense. I invested in, as you say, 4 pubs with restaurants with them as well, and worked those for 3 or 4 years, and exited from them as well, one at a time. But because they were the business relationship was between me as a business owner and the pub company. The pub company provided business support, so business development managers, marketing departments who would give you marketing support in terms of menus, flyers, promotional items, etc., etc. They also had great relationships with the big brewers, so you could get marketing support from the brewers as well. And you'd have regular business development meetings with your area business development manager. But you operated as your own independent business under your own business name, not under a franchise brand name. That was the fundamental difference. And the standards which you implemented into your business were entirely your responsibility. The business development managers would perhaps give you advice, but ultimately, if you chose, not to clean the pub or have, stains on your glassware, or you served warm beer, or you didn't smile when customers walked into the pub, that was your problem.
Tragedies, of course, definitely.
Yes, exactly. So that for me as a business owner, there was support there. What I realized at the time when I was operating those businesses was that the support which is given by franchise operations is so much more than the support that I was getting from the pub companies. Even though there was quite a lot of support from the pub companies, but things, operations manuals, accounting processes, just the fact that you were part of in a franchise group, network, you're part of a much wider brand, and that networking that goes on between franchisees, the regional meetings, the team calls, the annual general meetings, the digital marketing support. There's so much more that franchise organizations give. That was a realization. What I again, this whole thing of franchising in my career was the power of that franchising brings, because of that, the business system which has already been developed, the experience, and taking so many of your hats that you need as a business owner, and the comfort of knowing that there's this structure behind you which is there to help you be successful.
Yeah, I think it's really underrated, isn't it? I think people look at the franchise license fee and think, okay, so that's just going on the training and that's it. It's buying you access, isn't it, really, to all that that support and just knowledge that surrounds, not just from the franchisor, but from the other franchisees. And that's something that I've said time and time again. I think surprises me is that they're willing to help each other so much, the franchisees, but also actually the franchising community as a whole just seems to be really supportive of one another. And I think it's quite infectious, really, when you're part of it, to want to help others where you can as well. And that's the thing I think is most underrated about franchising, really.
Yeah, absolutely. It's incredibly. If you were to add up the value of the support that you actually got from a franchisor, I think most people would be staggered. One final thing, which I could, if while we're on this area of where I am in my career, going right the way back through the common thread, apart from franchising, is when I commented about quality, service, value, etc., etc. Again, the pub industry in the UK is very, very competitive. There are many business sectors actually which aren't very competitive, but pubs are renowned for, if you put your beer up by a penny, everybody complains, or can I put my prices up, etc., etc. Well, again, if you make sure that pub has it's clean, it's got great service, you're treated as that personal service, you're recognized when you go in, the beer's the right temperature, the music's the right level, the ambience, the lighting is correct, all of those things, the food is great, you can charge a premium. And people are quite prepared to pay 10p, 20p, 30p more for a pint of beer than they can get down the road, or another quid for their burger, or whatever it may be. Two things that does. One, it allows the business owner to invest further in delivering that great quality and service, etc. And it also makes the business more commercially viable and successful for the business owner. So everybody wins. Customer wins, the business wins in terms of its the ability to invest in it, and the business owner wins because it becomes more commercially viable and more profitable. And that continues to add value to the business for exit purposes.
Yeah, and it's probably less stressful going out there trying to find new clients all the time. If we're talking about a B2B world, I know from myself where perhaps I was a little bit naive in my early career. If you're just in it to do a transaction and you do it cheap, you're not as invested in putting all your time and effort into delivering a great service, you can just sort of churn through the numbers, and before you know it, it's tough work keep on chasing after new clients all the time, isn't it?
Very tough. Very tough.
So when you have a client, it's better to or customer, it's better to kind of nurture those relationships, and you'll get longer term business out of them. And as you start stacking those customers or clients one on top of the other, it then almost just becomes a repeating model, doesn't it? A sort of almost residual kind of model that means you don't have to do as much chasing in the long run, which I think is everybody's dream, isn't it? To have some form of passive income. But I'm not saying that is that case. That's the case, but it's a little bit easier when you're speaking to a client who already trusts you than somebody who's brand new to
very much so. Yeah.
So I'm looking at your profile here, and you've worked for a couple of big name franchise brands then as franchise support manager, national support manager again, and then with Tutor Doctor more recently, country manager and franchise field consultant. So you've spent a lot of time in your career supporting people of these or franchisees of these brands. So I wanted to ask you a couple of questions around this. So I wanted to know, what was some of the biggest challenges you saw those franchisees facing in those businesses, and were there any kind of common trends?
Yeah, without a doubt, the common thread across all the brands I've worked for, and this is not just common to the UK, because when I was with Tutor Doctor, I was supporting a team of managers across the globe. So we were responsible for. I was responsible ultimately for nearly 350 franchisees in 16 different countries, and the commonality is the challenge of small business owners to go out there and build their sales. And as we were just talking about, that repeat business, etc. Small business people have got lots and lots of hats to wear. The franchisor takes some of those hats and wears them firmly on their head. But there's still a lot of work that a new business owner has to do. And many, many franchisees come from backgrounds that they're not familiar with sales processes. They're not familiar with marketing processes and how that all works and builds together. By far the largest amount of support time is spent with franchisees in helping them to learn and execute on marketing strategies, and also to learn how to get the best possible opportunity out of every inquiry that those marketing activities build in.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So, what was your relationship like with the franchisees then? Were you kind of, I'm imagining you're not giving your personality and who you are, but, is it like a dictator and, do it this way and you'll have success? Or is it more as a friend? Is it as a coach or consultant? What was that kind of relationship like with the franchisees?
Yeah, great question, Ed. Because again, this goes right back to the beginning of our conversation. Every single franchisee is as an individual person who has a different understanding of the world around them. They also have their own challenges in life, and understanding, digging in deeper into that person, who they are, what challenges they have, what needs they have, helps to frame those conversations with franchisees to ultimately get the best for them. The easy answer is I'm definitely not a dictator. I absolutely believe in the operations manual for a franchise brand and the standards which must be maintained and delivered, but that I personally will always marry that to the individual franchisee to find the best way for that franchisee to find their success.
Great stuff. So I'm looking at the time, and I know we're coming to sort of 50 minutes now into our time speaking together. So I've got kind of one more question to ask you about your career and what you're doing now, more specifically. Right. And then I'm going to dive into the three questions I ask everybody towards the end. But I think it ties in quite nicely to what we've been talking about, really. So you're now working with Cymphony as the managing director. So anybody who listens to a few of these podcasts will know that you guys are sponsoring us or powering our podcast, which I massively appreciate, of course. But I think what the service that you provide, perhaps talk about that a little bit for me just for a minute. But what I want you to kind of include in there is how you've seen buying behavior change over your time as a franchise support manager, and then how Cymphony are helping to combat that challenge.
Yeah.
If you don't mind.
Yeah. No, sure. Quite a big question, that, and certainly. I mean, some people would think, this is another change that he's made in his career from hotel business to franchising, and now into Cymphony, which is an inbound communications specialist. That's a posh name, if you like, for a telephone answering service. Although we're not a telephone answering service, we are a communications, inbound communications business, which allows consumers their channel of choice. As consumers have moved along the years, telephone is one channel which we use to communicate with each other. Another channel is, just as we're doing at the moment, video. Another one is web chat. Another one is via social media. WhatsApp is a very popular channel of choice. So there are many opportunities for consumers to communicate with businesses. But it's really difficult for small businesses and some large businesses to be able to manage those channels of choice efficiently. There's nothing worse than going onto a web chat and it says, sorry, we have no chatters here at the moment, or chat is only open from 9 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. People want immediacy, especially millennials, Generation X and Z, etc. So that's what Cymphony does. How I got to be working for Cymphony or heading up Cymphony was Tutor Doctor had realized a number of years ago that this challenge of sales was partly driven by the fact that franchisees were missing a lot of opportunities to convert inquiries into sales, only because they were busy doing other stuff. So calls would come in and they would be at a meeting with another potential client, or they'd be driving or something of that nature. And the call would go to voicemail. Very, very often, voicemails, people do not leave voicemail. So you've lost the call. And even more so, even if they do leave a voicemail, to phone back and try and convert that inquiry. Very often the calls are not answered. Or ultimately, if you can catch them, they say, sorry, I don't need the service anymore. That's often because you've lost the moment when they did want the service, or they've found another supplier. In this world of choice, it's very easy to find.
Time kills deals, doesn't it?
Time, absolutely. I love that. Thank you, Ed. I'm going to steal that. I've never. Time kills deals.
Well, I know just from personal experience recently. So, looking to do something with the website that I'm running. You know, I sent out a message to a few people, and the people that come back to me quickly, or I could get hold of by phone or send an email to on even LinkedIn, you know, is how I approach some people. The ones that come back quicker are the ones that are more likely to get my business, rather than, having to wait. And I'm actually, I've noticed this about me, is I get a bit bored of doing the back and forth emails where you try and arrange a time to speak to someone. I'd rather have it instant, you know, and I've seen web chats actually where you can just pick a time. Facebook do actually. You just pick a time to speak to somebody, book that in, and great. Okay, that's sorted there and then. I don't have to send the email, wait for a response, check my spam, then send one back saying this time or this time, and that doesn't work. You know, that immediacy, like you say, is really, really important. And
exactly,
yeah, it's quite interesting. I when we first started speaking, I was maybe a little bit skeptical about Cymphony and the impact I could see it having within sales. But actually, I really get it now. Now I look at my own behaviors, especially since COVID. You know, you do want everything now, especially where it's online. It's
absolutely, it's
all about
absolutely
getting that service at that quality level quickly. And
that's right.
Really,
and we
really
call
nicely to your career.
Yeah, so we call it Omnichannel. So Omnichannel is clearly with Omni. It's everything. So any piece of communication that comes into a business which we're supporting is queued and answered, whether it be email or telephone or web chat or social media, etc., etc. Form fills on websites, and I came to Cymphony via Tutor Doctor. Because Tutor Doctor was a brand which was being supported by Cymphony, amongst the other. I think it's around about 23 franchise brands we support at the moment, and we'll continue to grow that. I have no doubt, because this is one of the biggest challenges that both franchisees have and franchisors have. Franchisors continually struggle with their support to find the solutions to that immediacy, to when the form is filled, to how to respond to web chat quickly, to how to ensure that the phone is picked up straight away, or it's responded to within that golden window of 5 minutes, which has been proved by the Harvard Business Review, but way back when. Every time there's a delay, there's a distinct risk that sale will be lost. There's a much higher chance of success if you've got immediacy, and we prove that time and time again with what we do.
Fantastic. Look, I can actually talk about it for a lot longer. We've got 3 minutes, and I want to ask you one final question before we wrap up, and that's obviously you've spent a lot of time looking at and supporting franchisees, looking at their businesses, trying to find efficiencies in what they're doing, focusing on customer service as well, and as providing quality. But if you could pick one piece of advice you'd give to anybody who's maybe looking at buying a franchise or getting into the franchising world, what would that be?
I guess the advice has to be that franchise models, franchise business systems are built out of proven systems. And the operations manual is there to help a franchisee be successful, not to hinder a franchisee from being successful. So follow that manual, follow the system, and you will be successful. There will be areas where you are not as strong in delivery, such as sales, marketing, etc., etc. Use your franchisor and the expertise that they have to guide you to success. That operations manual is there for you to be a success, not to hinder your success.
Fantastic. Good advice. And there's one other thing that's just sort of popped into my mind there of what Cymphony is kind of like within your career, and that they're like the restaurant, right? Within the bigger franchise chain, I think it's outsourcing one area of the business for somebody who's specialist in it. And as you said before, with franchisees juggling many things in their minds,
that's exactly
outsourcing something that, like, responding quickly could be quite valuable. So
exactly, that's exactly it. We are an outsourcer to thousands of clients, and that's that. You've said it absolutely correctly. And if you go onto our website, the banner is the power of the personal. We take a lot of time to understand the needs of each of our individual clients. So we don't sound vanilla in any of the interactions that we have. And that's really important as well.
Fantastic. Tim, thank you very, very much for your time today. And thank you for sharing your career story with us and your insights. And hope you have a great day. Thank you very much.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed it. And thanks for allowing me the opportunity. We'll hopefully do it again sometime.
Sounds good. Cheers, Tim.
All right. Okay, Ed. Thank you.